I really thought Transit Week wasn't the thing I was doing anymore, but here goes. Turns out Transit Week is back. So, enjoy. You see this man here holding a purple coffee cup? That's Andy Byford, known by Americans, and specifically New York residents, as Train Daddy. This is Andy opening the Elizabeth line back when I was in London in May. Andy is British, but Andy doesn't have an incredible reputation because of his charming, if slightly funny, accent. No, Andy is a bit of a globe-trotting transit superstar. Not perfect, but more or less everything he touches turns to gold. Okay, but for real, Andy has had serious positive impacts when he worked for the predecessor to Sydney Trains, Toronto's TTC, and New York City Transit in New York City, as well as at TfL multiple times, both very early in his career and quite recently. He's the type of guy that I like to imagine the people who watch this channel aspire to be. Someone who's really familiar with the world of transit systems and with what each city uniquely does well. As it turns out, when Andy was in New York, he was pushed out basically because he was too successful, and stole a lot of spotlight from blue and gold bus and train man. Andy has been back in North America for a while now. He's that much of a transit celebrity that people actually track his movements. And people have been curious and sort of talking about where he might end up going. But the reality is that few agencies could offer more prestige than the MTA, which is sort of funny to say. But actually there is one other place where Andy could potentially get his transit fix, at a place where he truly has the ability to make an enormous impact. And that's where he's actually apparently ending up: Amtrak. Now, from what I can tell from the Streets blog article that talks about this, Andy isn't going to be running the organization. But that's fine, he's going to be in a pretty senior role from what I can tell. And I'm really excited about this. When Andy was in Toronto for about 5 years, he was able to comprehensively reform the transit system. From management to best practice, the way trains and buses were run, everything was rethought. He took responsibility when things didn't go well. He was actually on TV regularly, including when there were problems with the subway, which is something I can't say for Toronto's current leadership. He also helped get problematic projects back on track and actually done. But probably most importantly, he really just understood the rider of the transit system. And he didn't own a car, which is respectable, and it really shouldn't be a unique, special thing that a transit agency CEO doesn't own a car. You're running a transportation system. But Andy didn't, and he actually would talk to regular riders, and he would carry a plastic bag around with him and pick up garbage on the trains and on the platforms. He's a guy who cares about the riders, he cares about the system. He understands transit. And in just a short time running New York City Transit, he was able to have a huge positive impact. He not only improved the service, got trains running faster and more reliably, but he also changed people's outlook. He made New Yorkers, who are a cynical bunch, I'm sorry New Yorkers, think that, hey, the subway could get way better and it should get way better. That's an incredible achievement, and Andy made it possible. That he was ultimately pushed out feels like one of the biggest political mistakes ever made associated with public transport. So why is it so significant that he's going to get involved in Amtrak? Well, in many ways, North American urban transit, particularly in Canada, has improved a ton in recent decades. Intercity passenger rail is still just not all that great, or at the very least, not what it could be. But to be clear, it's trending in the right direction, both with Amtrak in the United States and with Via Rail in Canada, which have both been doing really well in recent years. Yes, they have the classic North American train problems, but they've actually been growing their ridership in a big way, and I would argue that they've really started to find their niche, find a way to operate that actually makes them popular with the public and popular just in terms of people getting on trains. And while ridership is growing, Amtrak in particular has been doing a lot of stuff to kind of up its level of service, including opening a very nice new train hall in New York City, as well as nice new facilities in a lot of different places, and planning on introducing a massive overhaul of its entire fleet with nice, sleek, modern trains. This is the exact type of moment when bringing in someone like Andy Byford, who really gets trains in a way that a lot of North Americans sadly do not, could supercharge this ascendance and ridership growth and just success of intercity passenger rail. Andy could offer an achievable plan, like he did with New York City Transit and the fast-forward plan for modernizing the New York City subway, that actually takes the significant government support that exists right now for passenger rail in North America, with Amtrak getting literally tens of billions of dollars in the US, and Via Rail planning some sort of large transit project, which will probably be influenced by whatever Amtrak does, and combine that with a sort of pragmatic mindset that looks at growing where passenger rail is already successful and introducing new, potentially very popular services to the continent. He just feels like the kind of guy who could point us in the direction of maximum impact. And given the amount of money being spent in the United States and Canada as well would be enough to build entire high-speed rail networks in other countries around the world, I really do believe that even if Andy can't necessarily achieve that in America, he could achieve something far greater than what's currently planned, and that's a really exciting prospect. Perhaps stretching electrification beyond just the Northeast Corridor and outcompeting some airlines might even be in the cards, as well as filling gaps that we all know shouldn't exist, and Andy also knows. Because again, the guy gets trains. Just the idea that someone as impactful and visionary as Andy Byford might be in the room when decisions are being made makes me optimistic. Now yes, I might be getting too optimistic, and I have been burned before. Andy was pushed out for political reasons in New York, and Amtrak isn't exactly not political. But I'm sure everyone is sort of aware of this, given what happened last time, and I feel like a genuine good news story like this is just something worth getting excited about. Make sure you're subscribed, because if Amtrak does release an exciting new plan, you know where you're going to hear more about it. Ultimately, leadership matters, and while aviation executives and others who believe in passenger rail are great, having a leader within Amtrak who really lives and breathes modern passenger rail, not North American trains, is going to be potentially very impactful. It seems like a recipe for success, and it certainly was in Toronto, and if all too briefly in New York City. Thanks for watching, and Train Daddy lives on.